Hello, I'm Enzo, and today I'll be playing Forever Stranded. This is a super neat mod pack, and as you guys have probably seen by the thumbnail or the picture behind me, it's very much like Crash Landing. I believe this is actually a sequel to Crash Landing, especially from what I've read inside, because there is some text saying that I crashed again, which kind of makes sense if I managed to launch a rocket from the first crash and then crash onto another planet. That's why I decided to name my world Second Crash. You know, I was originally going to go with Second Impact. That would have worked better, I think. I guess I really should have tested this because there is this one quest at the beginning that tells you to run a couple of commands. Maybe I should have done those. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to. But you see, I didn't because it says that you do it after you update the mod pack. Well, I just downloaded this. I haven't updated it, so I don't think I need these. Maybe that messes up a ton of stuff, but I guess so. Keep that in mind for the duration of this run. Well, I've done it again. I've crashed on another planet. I think that's stupidly funny. Alright, my first goal is to head to the back of the ship where I see some pipes. There's some odd liquid interaction here, but thankfully it doesn't damage me or anything like that. The first thing I need to do is grow a tree, which means I'm going to need some dirt. Thankfully, completing this mission gives me the coarse dirt that I need. Also a loot chest that gave me a bunch of slime balls. These are pretty worthless. And just like usual, I plant the tree, grow it with some bone meal, and harvest the wood. I decide to start looking around, and it's pretty much all desert. It's slightly different from Crash Landing because Crash Landing actually has dust instead of sand, so this will be super interesting. I got some sticks from dead bushes, which is actually pretty handy right now, because I don't want to waste any wood if possible. Since the next main mission is to craft all of the Tinker's Construct stations, I thought might as well make them now so that I can start leveling up my tools as fast as possible. I accidentally made way too many patterns here because you can actually reuse them in the pattern crafter. I actually can't remember. As usual, I created all of my patterns and all of my tool parts to make my first wooden hatchet. This thing is a tiny bit sad, but I need an axe. It's also interesting because this one requires a tool binding. I'm not used to that. Some versions have different requirements for the tools, and I also made a shovel because that's always helpful. I know I'm going to need the sand soon enough. As you can probably guess, I need the sand so that I can throw it into a sieve to start getting some actual resources. I mean, I could tell really early on this is going to be another one of those packs where it's all centered around ex nihilo. When I went back into my shuttle, I suddenly heard something, so I had to check it out. And my god, is that a sandstorm? Yes, by the way, that is absolutely a sandstorm. So apparently, this mod pack does have a weather mod installed. And if I'm thinking correctly, it's that weather mod. You know, one of the classic ones that has tornadoes and everything? Super scary stuff that can destroy like everything in its path? Yeah, things are gonna get interesting. I don't actually think tornadoes can happen. It didn't in this playthrough, but it causes some other stuff to happen instead. Now that it's nighttime and the entire world is flooded with mobs, meaning I definitely can't go outside, I decided to start working on some other stuff. To start, I made a heavy sieve. This is so that I can start getting some resources. There's only one tiny issue. I can't actually make the mesh that I need. This is also when I realized that all of these doors are being opened by invisible pressure plates. I guess that makes a whole lot more sense now. I really wondered how that worked. But back to the problem at hand, I actually left my dirt outside, which is one of my biggest mistakes. I really needed that piece of dirt so that I could grow trees. So I need to make more dirt. How can I do that with my extremely limited resources? Well, there's only one option really. I need to make some. Now, my entire plan was to get a bunch of rotten flesh and then throw that into a barrel, you know, to compost it to make dirt. The issue is that I made the worst sword possible. You see, the rapier is one of my favorite swords because it ignores armor, but due to this pure insane amount of enemies, I should have gone for something like the broadsword, since it does a sweeping attack that can hit multiple enemies. So yeah, that's one of my first mistakes. Trust me, there's gonna be plenty early on. And then some very interesting stuff happened in rapid succession. First of all, I learned that the fall damage threshold in this pack is way lower. I think it's only like 3 or 4 blocks. So yeah, I took damage from that. And because of my horrible luck, there was a witch standing in that trap, and she happened to poison me. I hope all of you know by now that poison doesn't kill you in Minecraft, but it lowers you to half a heart, which really sucks because that just chewed up a ton of my hunger, which is bad because my food is very limited right now. Now that it's morning, and with the last of the zombies dead, I can actually head out and go get the dirt that I placed earlier. Still, I have no clue why I didn't bring it inside in the first place. Unfortunately, there's still a ton of mobs and zombies scattered around. The main problem is that these aren't normal zombies. These are actually desert-exclusive zombies called husks. Husks are extremely annoying because they do not die to sunlight, burn up in the day, and when they hit you, there's a very good chance that they inflict hunger, which rapidly drains your hunger bar. It's even worse if you're moving. Overall, this pack looks like absolute hell so far, and this isn't even the worst of it. I think I made my life so much easier by not turning on those commands from earlier, because I believe this pack is supposed to be played in hardcore. I think you'll see how that's gonna go pretty soon. You see the main problem here? In the middle of my health bar, there's this fire symbol. That is the heat indicator. For a tiny bit, I have been using a heat resistance potion. Thankfully, the game gives you one for free. That's super helpful, but my temperature is still rising. I'm going to burn up eventually. So I don't know if this is one of the things that the command at the start changes or what, but this heat mechanic is a different mod. Actually, I think it's tough as nails, but let me just tell you, this heat mechanic is the worst balanced mechanic I have ever seen in any video game. This mechanic is just horribly balanced. That's the primary issue with it. You see, in Crash Landing, you can make ice water to cool yourself down. Most important of all, you can literally just wear a camel pack to keep your body temperature cool. In here, you get none of those options. There are a couple of options for reducing your heat, but you'll see how those just straight up don't work later on. The mission book says that there's a bug if you use the heat resistance while you have hypothermia, so that means I can't use the potion and I literally just die for free. Well, that was fun. I just died and there's literally nothing I can do about it. Awesome. But that's okay, I thought. The heat mechanic is going to get better. Certainly. But oh boy, I had no clue what I was in for with this pack. Now that I've gotten some more wood, in classic ex nihilo fashion, I put some silkworms into my tree to infect it so that I can get string from these infested leaves. This is the next major step in progression so that I can get string, which means I can finally start sifting sand and dust, because that's all I have right now, to start getting some other actual resources. As you can see, even if I drink water to try and cool myself down, there's literally nothing I can do to stop the heat. So, what am I supposed to do here? I can't go outside because I'm going to bake alive either way. I can't do anything at night because there's 1,000 zombies waiting to kill me. This whole heat thing is just stupid at this point. Again, if you want a perfect example, look at Crash Landing. Or even better, watch my Crash Landing video. It's done perfectly in there. To deal with heat, you literally just wear a camel pack, fill it with water, and it regulates your body temperature. That's super easy. They have a canteen in this pack, which you can store water with, but you actually have to filter that, throw it into the furnace to clean it. It's a giant mess, and nowhere near as good. As a matter of fact, that canteen is one of the worst things in this pack. You'll see later on when I use it, but I'll just say it does the opposite of what's intended. Oh boy, I'm having so much fun right now. 3 deaths that I can literally do nothing about. And by the way, this is why I don't play hardcore. I seriously don't understand why people like hardcore, because I would just lose my mind if I lost all of my progress anytime I died in a game. Maybe that's fun for some people, but definitely not for me. I have anger issues as is. This entire time, I've been working on the entire ex nihilo loop. Growing trees, getting saplings to throw those into barrels to make dirt, sifting that dirt to get stone pebbles so that I can make cobblestone, and finally a furnace, because this lets me smelt ores, which is pretty important since I have a bunch of iron and other stuff I've gotten from sifting through dust and sand. One of the biggest differences I noticed between this pack and Crash Landing is that the food in Forever Stranded is not nerfed. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, all of the food in Crash Landing is absolutely horrible. You need so many different types of food to actually feed yourself. But in here, food has its normal, nutritional value, which is pretty awesome. But the downside, which you quickly notice, is the diminishing returns happen way faster. Instead of the normal 20, it's 6, which means you have to cycle between tons of different food. The diminishing returns literally happen instantly. So yeah, on one hand, you get more nutritional value from the food, but on the other, you have to rotate between a ton of different foods or else you'll lose a lot of that bonus. After smelting some iron and making a pair of shears, I can actually harvest the infested leaves. Now, normally the infested leaves are pretty much worthless, so why do I want them here? Well, you see, there's a very interesting mechanic that's unique to Tough as Nails, and I can actually throw the infested leaves into a sieve to get slime balls and ice. Now, this is explained because the silkworms excrete these substances. Very understandable, some science there, I guess. But combining the slime balls and ice will actually give me jellied ingots. This is super awesome because the jellied armor set will allow me to finally cool down for once, or at least reduce the amount of heat that I take in. Like I said, you'll see when I finish it, it's still pretty much worthless. The main problem is that this process is going to take a super long time. I can't compress these leaves and throw them in the heavy sieve. I can create multiple normal sieves and place them next to each other so that I can use them all at once. Yeah, no matter what I do, this is going to take a long time. A little bit later, I got these rewards from a loot chest, and this is super interesting. At first, I thought these dust things were completely worthless. The other one flew somewhere else in the shuttle because I didn't have enough room in my inventory. So the corrupted stuff, it does something. It has to do with souls. I'm not exactly sure, but I never needed that. But the normal vile dust is extremely handy because I did need that for a crafting recipe later on. To get this dust, you actually just smelt soul sand. So it's actually not too bad because I can easily make soul sand, but just a convenient reward. One of the coolest mods in this pack is called Spartan Weaponry. This allows me to make all sorts of new and super cool weapons. In this case, I'm making a stone greatsword. All these weapons have crazy different modifiers, and in this case, it gives me range, and more importantly, full damage when I do a sweeping attack with the sword, which is super cool. The only downside is that you have to have both hands free to use it. If you have an item in your other hand, it'll actually slow your attack speed. Overall, very cool concept. And it's kind of a shame I didn't use more weapons. I only used 2 from this pack in total, but at different rarities. And a while later, I finally got enough ice to complete my jellied armor. At this point, I was pretty hopeful because, well, I have full jellied armor. Surely I shouldn't have any heat problems anymore, right? To capitalize on the ridiculous amount of mobs in the desert, I wanted to make a little mob farm. To do this, I dug a massive pit underground. This is around 20 blocks or something like that, so that when the mobs fall in, they take most of their health as damage, but stay at half a heart so I can kill them. I got super lucky and managed to place this block exactly when I mined the sand, so I didn't have to deal with that entire column of sand. As you can see, the zombies started pouring down. That's pretty awesome. This gives me a very good source of rotten flesh. I didn't get many other mob drops because zombies are the only ones that have like the pathfinding aggro range, you know, far enough to actually track and run towards me. All of the other mobs are just staying off in the distance. I'm also planning to do the classic trapdoor trick, which I'm guessing most of you know, but if you didn't, trapdoors will always be a solid block to mobs, so they'll walk over it, even if the trapdoors are open. You can kind of see why this is super helpful in a situation like this. It makes mob farms incredibly easy to make. And as you can see, the stone greatsword is extremely helpful for this, mostly because of the sweeping damage. Since all of the mobs are at 1 HP down here, they'll die instantly. Besides the rotten flesh, which I can use to make zombie jerky, I can combine with salt to make other foods. Zombies drop all sorts of good stuff, like potatoes, that's super helpful, carrots are amazing, and very rarely iron ingots, which will be nice. I mean, besides that, everything else was going extremely well. But do you see what's going on here? You see the screen? I think we all know what's about to happen. The inevitable. Even though I literally just made the armor set I'm recommended to make, I've been drinking water, even though I don't have full water here, I'm still dying of hypothermia. Like I said, this is the dumbest balancing I've ever seen. Why is my heat regulation so poor? Part of the reason is because this mod pack also has seasons. So at some points it'll get hotter, at some points it won't be as hot. Yeah, it's just horrible either way. But at least I managed to delay the inevitable for a little bit. Apparently I still just die and there's nothing I can do about it. Oh well. A little bit later on, I encountered the exact same issue. Again, I'm starting to die of hyperthermia. This is when I get a rare good idea. Why not jump in a pool of water? Well, apparently that's the solution. I mean, not exactly, because the water has its own issues, but it's a temporary solution to this massive problem. The major problem is that I literally can't do anything when I'm in this pool of water. I just get to sit here and do nothing. Later on, I'll bring a crafting table over here so I can do something, but yeah, this is not fun in the slightest. I can't play at all. This entire time, I've also been working on all sorts of stuff to make a cobblestone generator. This is going to be a major step in progression because, well, infinite cobblestone. I don't have to keep sifting through dirt forever. Most of you probably know the recipe by now, especially for this one. It's in most mod packs, actually. It's 6 cobblestone, 1 piece of glass, 1 bucket of water, and 1 bucket of lava. I made a crucible a while ago. It's the same ex nihilo recipe as always, with a torch beneath it. And now I have a source of cobblestone. That's awesome. I can start turning this cobblestone into gravel, which will let me get flint. Flint is super important because now I can upgrade my mesh for the sieve to flint, and eventually iron, and way later on, diamond. This is one of the rare times I could actually go outside and collect all of the drops from the mobs that died in the sunlight, like skeletons, mostly. And a little bit later, I placed a massive ring of torches around my shuttle so that mobs don't spawn immediately next to my base. As you saw from one of the earlier clips, I set up a little farm to grow some food. It's also great that I looked at the footage again because I knew I set up a farm originally. You'll see later on because something interesting happens when I grow stuff, but good to know that it works in the first place. Much like Crash Landing, Forever Stranded has all of these buildings scattered around the map. Since this is a desert, we actually get desert temples, which is pretty cool. But more importantly, I finally found a city. This is massive because the city contains all sorts of important stuff I'm going to need for progression. Earlier on, I was actually trying to make a smeltery, which is the next step for progression. The main problem is that I can't actually make one. I can make some parts of the smeltery. Unfortunately, most of the parts that I actually need, like the smeltery controller, the drains, the faucets, and the basins, yeah, I can't actually make those. I have to find them. Conveniently, they're all located within this city. Unfortunately, the city, just like Crash Landing, is absolutely packed with mobs. But the risk is well worth it because of the loot that we can get. So, you know, high risk, high reward. Before I head back to this city, there is some stuff that I was looking at and I want to try crafting. There's this super neat mod that I've never seen before called Progressive Automation. This gives me a bunch of super cool early game automation, well, options. In this example, I'm trying to make a tree harvesting machine. Now, I made a generator because I thought I'd need a generator with the actual harvester, but apparently all of the harvesters can just accept fuel on their own. So that's a bit unfortunate, but I did use the generator a little bit later on. As cool as this mod seems, it is just filled with issues. I feel like it doesn't work properly, it chews through fuel, which really sucks, and it never seems to work right with any of the machines. Well, I only used the harvester, really, but it didn't work that well. The first major issue is that I can't just use an iron axe in a stone harvester. Apparently, you have to use the right rank of tool, and in this case, I actually need a stone axe, which also means it's going to break really fast. The second major issue is that you need upgrades to increase the range. So I like the base concept of this, but just like Tough as Nails, it's absolutely horribly broken and balanced, which really sucks, but at least I have some tree automation. And something I learned very early on is that I can't just make diamond tools. You see, I would love to have diamond gear. The major problem is that diamond tools require a specific diamond alloy, which is easy enough except for one item called creeper oysters, and I don't know how to get those. I didn't look it up, sure, but it doesn't tell you in game. So let's just say I'm never going to have any proper diamond tools, at least vanilla tools. There's plenty of other modded options. Another thing I wanted to work on is some transfer pipes. These are very similar to normal, but instead of redstone, I actually need that vile dust that I happened to get earlier to make them. Like I said, extremely convenient reward. I also smelted up a ton of the ingots that I've gotten from sifting gravel and stuff. For some stupid reason, I took the capacitor bank. I thought, eventually I'll automate power. I don't need solar panels. Yeah, those solar panels would have been so nice. I barely used this capacitor bank. It was pretty much worthless, actually. But I will say the capacitor bank was only nice because it let me charge up my equipment later on. So at least it did get some use. Besides that, I finally figured out that I can make cooling coils. These are extremely interesting because it might give me an actual cooling solution. The problem is that I need diamonds to make them, so that'll be a little bit. I'm currently looking for some solution to my water problem. I've been looking through all of the recipes, and trust me, I've already tried to make an infinite water source. Obviously that doesn't work. But then I found this very interesting block for very cheap. This is an infinite water source from Nuclear Craft. This mod pack has extreme reactors, but it also has nuclear craft. I'll get to the problem with that near the end of the video. But for now, this means I have a very good source of water. The problem is that I just need to make a bunch of stuff to get it. I also decided to try and make a sink to test that out to see if it works, but no, the sink does not work in this version. The sink works in some mod packs in older versions where it's an infinite water source. Unfortunately, not here. It's pretty clear that most of the infinite water options in this pack are supposed to be late game. You're supposed to automate water with leaves or something like that. But at the same time, there's the nuclear craft option, so the balance is completely off and I can make infinite water early on. It makes no sense to me. The only thing I really need to make the plates to get my infinite water source is graphite dust. The problem is that I don't have a pulverizer, so I need to make that first. I've been working on even more stuff. I managed to get a diamond mesh, which is great because I can get some of the rarest materials. I've been making a ton of cooking utensils so that I can make all sorts of different foods and stuff like that, since, I have to have 7+ foods in rotation, which is ridiculous. And I even made an auto hammer, which is simple enough. It's a bunch of iron, glass, and a couple of diamonds to make the hammer. I hooked that up to the generator that I made earlier on. Overall, everything is going very well so far. I had all the materials to make a pulverizer at this point. The only problem was actually redstone. Redstone is a little bit annoying because it's rare and it comes from dust, but thankfully, I managed to get some redstone from witches that fell into my mob farm. Witches also have a very long engagement range, so they will run up and try to kill me. And I mean, they're successful most of the time. Not at killing me, but making me extremely angry by poisoning me forever. But there we go. Thermodynamics Pulverizer. Again, the main reason I needed this is literally just to grind up graphite to make graphite dust. But it will be handy for other stuff later on. You know, one interesting problem I've actually been facing in this pack is crafting stuff. For some reason, a lot of the ingots come from different mods. In this case, these are ex nihilo ingots instead of the normal like thermodynamics, which is really annoying because they look different from other ingots. I know what most of the ingots look like by default, but now it's confusing me, so that's why it takes me a while to craft some stuff. That doesn't really matter now because I finally have my infinite water sources. This is super stupid that I can make water this easily and this early on. But I'm not complaining because, well, I don't have to worry about water anymore, which is very nice. One of the big things I've been working towards is called cooling coils. These are extremely helpful because, in theory, they should help cool me down. The problem is that I need a bunch of items, including nether bricks, which are a little bit annoying to make, and of course the diamonds make them a little bit expensive. But if they actually cool me down, it'll be super helpful. To use them, I pretty much just place them down around my base. Now it says that they need a closed room. That could be part of the issue why they don't always seem to work. Maybe this place isn't enclosed enough. I have a feeling that's the problem. But occasionally I do see them light up and cool me down a slight bit. Before I return to the city, there is a bunch of stuff I want to make so that I can actually survive there, with the insane amount of mobs, of course. The first weapon I made is called a halberd. This is a giant, like, super long stick and an axe, which is super cool. This thing has increased attack range and insane attack damage, but the attack speed is relatively slow. This is going to be my primary weapon for dealing with individual targets, but I am planning to make a diamond greatsword, just like the stone one I had earlier, and that will be used to deal with groups of enemies. This has also taken me a super long time because I've been grinding to get emeralds. Since I can't exactly make diamond ingots to make diamond armor yet, I decided to go with the emerald path instead, because that's a modded thing in this pack. Even though emeralds are more rare than diamonds, the armor set is slightly better, and obviously my best option for armor. Unfortunately, I have to keep the jellied armor set, otherwise I just, overheat and die. You see the issue though? I am still dying of hypothermia. Okay, yes. On one hand, I didn't exactly know how the cooling coils worked, but on the other, I am literally sitting in a pool of water with jellied armor, and I'm still dying of heat. This is just the stupidest thing I have ever seen, and I cannot stress that enough. I've been playing video games for like over 16 years or something like that at this point in my life. And this is the dumbest, most broken mechanic I have ever seen in a video game. And broken in the bad way, obviously. It doesn't work right. I seriously don't know if the devs have actually played this pack and tested it, because I swear, this looks like something they coded in and then just forgot about. The most insane part is how there's nothing I can do about this to even cool myself down. I've literally done everything I can at this point. Cooling coils. I'm sitting in a pool of water. I have the right armor. I just can't play. There's nothing I can do about it. I die for free. And if this were a hardcore pack, I would have quit a very long time ago. But trust me, the saga of this stupid tough as nails mod does not end here. I'm almost ready to head to the city, but there's still a few things I need. The most important of which is going to be a backpack. The only problem is that I don't have leather just yet, and I need leather to make the backpack so that I have storage space. Thankfully, all I need to do is build a redstone furnace and throw some rotten flesh in there. I was originally hoping to use a drying basin instead, but there's no way for me to get black dye currently. Since I'm going to be trapped in my base either way, I decided to dig down quite a bit. As you can see, there's something very interesting with Tough as Nails. The heat does decrease as I go lower into the world. That's very interesting. And part of the reason I decided to actually make more room lower down in the world. Besides the space that I can use to build more stuff in, this sand will be super useful to throw into the sieve and get resources out of. So it kills several birds with one stone. Or in this case, mines a whole lot of sand with several torches. Because this is my favorite part about the pack, how easy it is to make space underground using the classic torch method. And I am almost ready to head over to the city. I also made a hang glider, which will save me a lot of hunger because I don't have to run nearly as much, and my diamond backpack will let me bring a ton of stuff with me. The hang glider is relatively cheap, it just requires a bunch of leather and iron. But this is not the normal like open blocks hang glider. It's a knockoff. It's from a mod called Open Gliders. The worst part is that it has durability. Like seriously, a hang glider that has durability, that just feels illegal at this point. But whatever, leather is easy enough now that I have a redstone furnace, so it's not that big of an issue. I decided to wait until dawn so that mobs don't spawn nearly as much, and then I made a break for it. I immediately started running towards this first building that I saw way earlier on. It's some sort of giant tower. It's pretty neat because it's filled with mob spawners and chests. The mob spawners are obviously a major issue. I feel like you should just always break them the second you see them so that mobs don't even have a chance of spawning. And yeah, that's literally what every single level of this tower consists of. I haven't gotten very far into any of these. I don't know if the loot is really good, but there's some half decent stuff in there. But they get extremely difficult. I mean, you can see the problem right here. My mortal enemy, cave spiders. Poison has been a major issue up to this point, and any mob that can poison me is gonna be a problem. Besides chewing through my hunger like crazy, my health is extremely limited to begin with, as you've probably noticed early on. So yeah, poison is very bad, but even worse in here. A little bit later, I headed to one of the desert temples to see what I could get from it. There's some half decent loot in here, I guess. The golden apple is very nice. It's also super important that you break all of the TNT at the bottom first, because there is a chance that one of the chests is actually trapped, so it'll blow up either way. I never got into any of the bee stuff, and I didn't use Ender IO like much at all to need these capacitors. As a matter of fact, I did use Ender IO later on, but I never used these capacitors. So literally worthless to pick up, but oh well. The major problem at this point is just this pack. I have to be running around the city so that I can actually loot it and stuff like that, but the main problem is I need to stop to cool down and sit in my water. But you know, I can't or else I'll get overrun by mobs. I've already discussed how bad the balance is in this mod pack and how stupid it all is. Combine that with the lowered health, it just makes zero sense at all. Like, how are you supposed to play this game, by the way? It was very much at this point that I just stopped having fun with it. The heat mechanic was driving me insane. I was so mad, as a matter of fact, that I just straight up disabled the heat mechanic. I was done. I'm having no more of that stupid mechanic. Again, it was perfectly fine in Crash Landing. I don't know why this mod author chose to use Tough as Nails and balance it this poorly. Whatever, it is what it is. Eventually I managed to get back to my loot, so it wasn't a major loss, but still, you can tell I'm not exactly pleased with how this is going at this point. I mean, the pack was super interesting at first, but the horrible balance and everything else just started to really drag down my experience. And even though there were still mobs around, which means I can't sleep the night away, at least there was a smeltery in this building so I can start harvesting it and hopefully build one for myself. Right outside of the city, I saw this very interesting structure. I had no clue what it was because it looked like a cube that had like pink liquid flowing out of it. Naturally, you know I had to inspect this thing because I knew it would be interesting. When I got close to it, oh yeah, I know what this is. That's a compact machine. The liquid is also part of it, and when you stand in the liquid, you actually get miniaturized, which is pretty funny. It's super interesting that this mod pack has compact machines. Since I know this mod exists, I'm just not used to it being in anything besides, compact claustrophobia. And honestly, I have no intentions of touching this mod, especially since I've already beaten compact claustrophobia. And I think the machines are perfect in their own pack, not in anything else. Once I got back to my base, I realized that I'm going to need a lot more room if I want to get some serious production going. I'm working on expanding the exterior of my base, and this giant cobblestone slab is so that I can actually mine under my base. That's where I'm going to be building everything. I've always preferred the underground in Minecraft because it's generally safer. On top of that, I don't want to deal with the surface because, well, look at my shuttle. There are occasionally sandstorms that create new sand on my ship. That is incredibly annoying. I don't want to clear off the sand like every single time there's a storm. So yeah, I'm gonna be channeling my inner goblin and staying underground for pretty much the rest of this run. To get as much sand and space as possible, I decided to start expanding downwards and see what was below. First of all, I discovered a sandstone layer, which is very nice. Sandstone does have its uses, and it's a nice solid block, so I can start carving out a massive space down here. But what's cooler than that? I found an abandoned mine shaft. That actually explains why there are a ton of mobs down here. That's also very good to know. Unfortunately, through several hours of exploring abandoned mine shafts, apparently they don't actually spawn chests. It's literally just enemies, which is very unfortunate. I was hoping for some good loot here, but yeah. Long story short, I pretty much explored most of the abandoned mine shafts and all of their connections so that I could actually place torches everywhere so that mobs don't spawn down here. I'd rather have mobs spawn on the surface so there's a chance that they walk into my mob grinder. The most interesting thing I found when I was hollowing out this entire area is actually a chest that was randomly buried under sand. Yeah, I guess there's just a random treasure chest in the middle of the desert here. I literally would have not known about this if I wasn't hollowing out the entire ground. There's some pretty interesting stuff, some food, which is very handy, bottle of enchanting, which is just XP, and a flint shuriken, which isn't actually very easy to get early on, so it might be decent. But yeah, just thought I'd note that. Now that I've gotten some proper space inside my base, I set up this smeltery. I really should have made it just a 5x5, well, on the inside, so a 7x7 outside. At first, it took me way too long to figure that out. But either way, I have a smeltery up and running, and now I can double the product that I get out of all my ores. You see, I thought it was doubling, but apparently in this pack it's modified. I think like Crash Landing, I feel like that does the same way, where instead of 2 times, you actually get 4 times the output of your ores, which is absolutely insane. That's awesome because now I won't have any more iron issues. It literally fills up half of the tank with just a stack of iron. That's pretty awesome. 28 blocks. The only real issue with my smeltery is that my production is actually super limited. I only had so many drains and faucets, and of course basins that I got from that city. Like I said earlier, I can't actually make any more. A little later on, I happened to get a visitor when I was pouring out my gold blocks. It's weird because I haven't actually seen many Endermen in this pack. They are definitely one of the rarest enemies in here. I figured that out later on when I actually needed an Enderman head. Now that I have all of these materials, my next goal is to start some proper automation and machine production. If I want to use more machines, I'm obviously going to need power. To get power, my main idea is lava. This is extremely easy because I have a cobblestone generator, crucibles are super easy to make, and yeah, it's probably my best renewable option for now. The next machine I'm making is the induction smelter. This is incredibly important because I also want to make a heavy autosieve, and for that I need steel. To make steel, I need coal or charcoal dust and iron. And of course, I throw those into the induction smelt. It costs 4 dust and 1 iron ingot per steel, and I'm going to need 20 steel to make the heavy sieve, so I'll be back in a while. After that, I set up a big patch of dirt and threw a bunch of ancient spores on it. Ancient spores you get usually from sand. I don't know if there are other sources. There's also like some other mycelium seeds that you can get in this pack, but they all serve the same purpose, to turn dirt into mycelium. Mycelium will start converting water in barrels into witch water. When I throw sand into the witch water, I get soul sand. Soul sand has plenty of uses, but I'm mostly going to be throwing it into the sieves so that I can get like quartz and other rare resources. After a little bit, I finally managed to get enough steel to finally make the automatic heavy sieve. This is pretty awesome. All I have to do is throw in the mesh and, of course, some compressed material. The thing to the left is an automatic hammer. That's the same one I've been using for a while now. So it's nice to finally have some proper dust automation. One of the coolest recipes in this mod pack uses the fluid transposer. By throwing bricks and lava together, I can actually make nether bricks super easy instead of having to throw redstone in lava to make netherrack. The main reason I don't want to make netherrack is because I don't have much redstone to waste right now. Now, I was originally making these nether bricks for something completely different. That's before I realized I was looking at the wrong thing. Either way, they will come in handy later on. I know I've said this in another run, I can't exactly remember which one, but it's always good to set up automatic obsidian production because you're always going to need obsidian in like every mod pack ever. It's required for something. Even though I have a ton of machines already made, there's still a couple things I need to finish up my plans. First of all, the magma crucible. This is always going to be useful for all sorts of things. And then the glacial precipitator. You probably wonder, why do I need ice and snow products? Well, I have a massive plan. My current problem is that I do not produce anywhere near enough power. I just have like barely enough. And I've been looking at all my options. You can actually see what I'm working on in my inventory right now. And I thought, well, if I have the resources to make a nuclear reactor, I might as well try and get cryolithium to actually cool it. Of course, all of these recipes differ from pack to pack. I was originally planning to make the blizz rods in the fluid transponder using experience, but I can just straight up make the cryolithium dust in here. It's actually quite simple. I need snowballs, I need redstone, nitrate. Nitrate is a byproduct of pulverizing sandstone, and to get the cryolithium dust itself, it's actually pretty interesting. I believe it is snowballs and molten redstone. So I have to throw the redstone into the magma crucible, that goes into the fluid transposer, you get the idea. I also built a coke oven and blast furnace. I completed the others a little bit later on, but I never really used them for anything. These are if you're going down the immersive engineering path, which I did not do at all. At the bottom of my base, I set up this little array of rubber trees. This is so that I can tap the resin out of them. Resin is going to be very important for some stuff in industrial craft, so I decided to get this started relatively early. Oh yeah, and I actually got the rubber tree sapling from sifting soul sand using a diamond mesh. It's one of the super rare items, but it becomes useless after you get just one. Obviously, you can get the saplings out of the tree and grow even more from there. I made these obsidian tool parts literally just for a mission. That's it. Because I am planning to upgrade my tools by making better, new tools instead. The loot crate happened to give me dead bushes, which it says is not good. Honestly, I would agree, these are pretty garbage, but not actually worthless, because I can actually just place them on sand and break them to get sticks. I've been working on making all sorts of stuff for quite a while now, and as you can see, the reactor is just about ready. there are only a few things left to do, and that's basically adding the coolant, which is gelid cryolithium. This is made by throwing cryolithium dust into the magma crucible. This liquid is also super interesting because every single block has to be a source for it to work, as in it'll like flow down and create a new solid block. It's really cool. But now, with this 4-cubed reactor, I can finally power even more machinery than before. What's insane is that the power production is pretty much 3 kilo-RF per tick, which is ridiculous. My current magma generators make like 100 RF a tick if I'm lucky. Using all of the carrots and potatoes that I've gotten from the zombies, I was planning to plant them again. You see the issue here? They just died for some reason. Well, by some reason, I'm guessing it's the heat. That's my best bet, but I don't understand why. I mean, the heat mechanic is disabled for me, but the crops are still dying, which is pretty stupid. I have a feeling I need to use cooling coils or something like that and have them in a specialized room. That all really sucks. Thankfully, the rice still seems to grow. So that's good enough because rice is extremely versatile. I went exploring for a long while and gathered a ton of resources from the city. My main goal was to get books from all the bookshelves there so I could make my own bookshelves and make a tiny little enchanting room right here. I wanted to make an enchanting room so that I can start enchanting my meshes, because for once I decided that's actually a good idea. I want to get Civ Fortune so that I can get more resources out of my dusts. I also gathered a ton of brownstone, which I didn't use until way later, and when you walk on brownstone you move faster, so really good for floors. I especially wanted to get Fortune on a mesh so that I could get even more resources when I'm sifting through precious materials like endstone, for example. Endstone takes a while to make because it requires lava and glowstone dust. I have plenty of glowstone dust, but I don't create that much lava. Thankfully, I don't need the lava for power anymore though. Endstone dust gives me all sorts of really good resources, including ender pearl dust, which I can use to make ender pearls, draconium dust, which is always super useful, and shulker pearls. At first, I seriously thought these were useless, but they will come in handy soon enough. After enchanting meshes for a while, I've been working on some other stuff. First of all, take a look at this. Alright, so you have your first tier of upgrades for thermal expansion. Thermal dynamics. That's simple enough. It's the exact same as always. Invar, redstone, bronze gear. Alright, that's extremely simple and cheap. But look at the next tier. This is just ridiculous. That's not the normal recipe. Empowered emerald crystals. Now, yes, these are possible to make, they're not super difficult, they're just going to take a ton of effort and time to make these. I just found the recipe ridiculous for the second tier of upgrades. The other 2 tiers are actually the same, so they're relatively easy, but still, I did not expect that. Anyways, you've probably been wondering what I'm working on. As you can see in the right side of my inventory, I've got a few items. I know they look quite odd. The top thing is a bowstring. The bowstring, funnily enough, is made out of rubber that I got from those rubber trees earlier. The green thing is a fletching, it goes at the end of arrows, or bolts in this case, and the final thing is a sugarcane reed. I got sugarcane as part of some reward earlier on, so that's what I used. This is all so that I can make a super powerful crossbow and bolt. These are like the best resources I have at hand. And while we're on that topic, I'm actually upgrading a bunch of my machines because I want them to go faster so that I can actually make what I'm working on, a bit easier. I've been doing quite a bit of testing, and to get the resource I want to make my tool out of, I have to expand this smeltery. I still have no clue why I didn't make a 7x7 just to start. That would have been so much better, and I've already had the materials to do it. I just didn't think it was necessary, up until now. I need way more processing power than I currently have. The best part about having all of this space, which is 200 blocks of capacity by the way, that's quite insane, and it makes smelting all sorts of stuff way easier than before. I've already made a couple of alloys like bronze and invar, But the main one I need for my next project is going to be electrum. Electrum, if you didn't know, is a combination of silver and gold, two very conductive metals on their own. But electrum doesn't end there, because it can actually be processed further. I have to pulverize it down to make electrum dust, and then combine it with molten redstone to make fluxed electrum. And this is what I want to make all of my tools out of, since it's pretty much the most powerful material I have access to currently. I was originally hoping to use draconium, since I have a ton of that. Unfortunately, I can't cast that out of the smeltery. There's no way to work with it. Besides being super expensive to make, fluxed electrum also takes a very long time to melt down. But all of this expense is absolutely worth it, because it is an incredibly powerful material. I've actually never used flux electrum to really make tools before, so this is also some very fun experience with it. And yes, I am planning to make all of my tools out of this. A sword, a crossbow, a bolt, a hammer, which is like a 3x3 pickaxe, and an excavator, a 3x3 shovel. I used the rubber bowstring because I thought it would be a better material. I don't know if it really modifies anything, and the effect, slingshot, doesn't really seem to do anything. At least I don't know how it works. Thankfully, I have a ton of quartz in reserve, and by throwing all of that quartz onto my bolt, I can make it deal a ridiculous amount of damage. I love how you can see the damage number go up the more I add. One of the few things I actually like about this Stranded Forever pack is that one of the mods, I think it's like Tinker's Add-ons, gives you a super cool and easy way to craft additional modifiers for your tools, which is neat. I'll go into that more later on, but I did want to get some XP the normal way. As you can see, this crossbow and bolt hit like an absolute truck. It is so much fun. You know the only issue? Well, since I'm using leaf fletching for my bolt, I mean I have no other choice because I don't have chickens just yet, and the slime leaves also suck. Yeah, the leaf fletching has an accuracy of 50%. Which means you're either going to hit your shot or not. It's literally 50-50. But we all know my luck, and most of my shots do miss in the end. Thankfully though, if the shots hit, like I said, they'll usually one-shot the enemy, which is very nice. The first thing I thought when I started using this crossbow and bolt is I feel like playing Gage in Borderlands 2. Now, since I'm guessing most of you are from my Minecraft viewer base, in Borderlands 2, the character Gage has a skill called Anarchy. Every time you reload an empty magazine or kill an enemy, you get a stack of Anarchy. You deal more damage, but lose accuracy per stack. As you can see by the gameplay here, my accuracy does not exist at all. But because of one of her other skills, the bullets have a chance to ricochet and hit an enemy. But yeah, I don't have ricochet here in Minecraft. Still, that's just what I thought of when I was using this thing. I deal tons of damage, sure, but I can't hit anything to save my life. Alright, back to making the upgrades. There are 4 tiers of upgrades. You can kind of see in the top right all of the toolboxes. The white iron one, the yellow gold one, the blue diamond one, and purplish obsidian ender one. I already have one of the gold upgrades because I got that as a reward. Thankfully, you don't have to use them in order, but I would like to make more. Unfortunately, they all have super difficult and expensive recipes. Funniest thing is that the final one requires an ender pearl and obsidian plates. It's actually the cheapest out of all of them. The iron one is very interesting. I'm creating an absolute abomination in this smeltery. I've thrown in emeralds, iron, and rotten flesh. The rotten flesh is used to make blood. This horrible combination creates something called pig iron. Pig iron is what I need to make a block out of as part of my iron modifier. A block of pig iron and 5 iron plates. And of course it has to be the large plates, which take 8 ingots per. Yeah, these are a little expensive. And when I combine those, it's easy enough to make another modifier. This is probably one of my favorite mods because it makes getting additional modifiers for your tools so much easier than before. Like, the XP is nice, but this is also nice. I don't have to go out and hunt mobs constantly. I'm automating mossy cobblestone for something I'm going to work on a little bit later. Thankfully, this is easy with the fluid transposer, one of my infinite water sources, and well, I have plenty of cobblestone. I've forgotten about one thing I wanted to do for a while now, and since I have ender pearls, I can finally complete it. With ender pearls and wool, I can actually make elevators. Elevators are awesome because they allow you to jump up or down a ton of blocks at once. I've been using this ladder the entire time. Even though it doesn't use hunger, still, the ladder is super slow and efficient. Especially when I could just be using, elevators, which are so much better because, well, they're instant. Using the mossy cobblestone, I can make balls of moss. By right-clicking the balls of moss on bookshelves, which also takes 10 levels of experience by the way, I can make enchanted moss. The enchanted moss can be used as a modifier on tools. It's an auto repair modifier, but it does cost tool XP. However, if I combine this moss with a book, I can make a true auto repair modifier. Unfortunately, the auto repair is extremely slow, but still, it's better than nothing. It's also at this point that I finally decided to automate the entire line of cobblestone to dust and then sifting dust with a Fortune 3 mesh so that I can get as much redstone as physically possible. My current goal is, oddly enough, visiting the Nether. I don't know if this is completely intended or not. I almost have a feeling it isn't, since the world is the exact same seed. I've looked in a testing world, but I wanted to hop over here just for a little bit, mostly to get Ardite. Getting Ardite is extremely annoying because it's a rare drop from sifting netherrack, and considering it costs redstone to make netherrack, yeah, it's super painful. Thankfully, it spawns naturally in the nether, and it's very abundant. The loot here wasn't anything super crazy, but the coolest thing I found was actually a lava charm, which, if you guys have played Terraria, you'll know exactly what this does. There's a new bar above my armor, and it gives me a little bit of time, I'm guessing 10 seconds or something like that, I believe it's 7 in Terraria, to stay in lava. A little bit later, something weird happened. You're probably wondering, how did I end up in the husk pit? And more importantly, how am I not dead instantly? Well, I was hunting an Enderman. What makes even less sense is why he teleported me in here. That's definitely new. Can't say I've had an Enderman teleport me before. So yeah, that's the thing that can happen in this mod pack apparently. To add insult to injury, he didn't even drop me an ender pearl. For my next goal, I've been working on a jetpack. This is just a ton of ingots and then other products I need to produce. I have everything to make an Invar jetpack, and if I really wanted to spend the extra time, I could go to Electrum, but I decided that Invar is fine. It would take way more work than it's worth to make an Electrum jetpack, because that requires a lot of molten redstone and stuff like that. Over 2,000 blocks away is what I've been looking for. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell what this is. It's a massive crater, and in the center is the asteroid that caused it. Well, okay, meteor, I guess. You get the point. All I know is that this is how I'm going to start applied energetics. The only problem is that this place is absolutely packed with mobs. And not just because it's nighttime either. The inside of the meteor is filled with tons of spawners, because this is supposed to be a super difficult pack. I mean, it's not fun at all, let me tell you. Dealing with these mobs took absolutely forever and chewed through a ton of my food reserves. Once I mined to the center of the asteroid though, I was in for a real surprise. Look at all of this. This room is packed with even more spawners, but what I'm really here for is all of this applied energetics, which, by the way, I got a comment telling me I've been saying that wrong literally my entire life. So, energetics, I guess. I'll probably be saying it my way. But yeah, this room is filled with tons of valuable equipment, which is super nice. But I did have to come back after a while, which was a very painful round trip, because I missed a bunch of items that were hidden in these other smaller meteors that scattered around the place. And that's pretty important because some of the materials in here are crucial to starting AE. While I've started some AE stuff, I also wanted to make something that, well, I can at this point, the Thirst Quencher. This is a neat little device that requires power and plenty of water, and I can put it in one of the bobble slots to automatically well, feed me water, I guess. It's super handy and relatively cheap. It's also a good time to note the reason I'm not using the canteen. It has a ton of problems. I forget exactly how you fill it, but pretty much no matter what, you then have to clean it and throw it into a furnace to make sure it's completely pure. The thirst quencher does all of that automatically. The real problem with the canteen, and why I used it once, never again, is because it can actually give you the thirst debuff. Yes, occasionally when you drink from it, you get extra thirsty and lose some of your water bar. It's like the stupidest thing ever. Something you're supposed to use to replenish your thirst actually can deplete it more than it replenishes. Yeah, like I've said many times, one of the dumbest, most horribly balanced mods I've ever seen. The main thing I've been working on at this point is trying to get another Fluix crystal so that I can make a charger to make more Fluix crystals. The main problem is that the seeds take like years to grow on their own without any accelerators. And that's been the entire bottleneck. So, as you saw there, I cheated one in real quick because it's literally just time. There's nothing else I can do but wait, and I really don't feel like waiting. Once I get a charger, I can actually make charged Certus quartz, and I get Certus quartz with 3 quartz and 2 redstone. So that's easy enough. But once I charge it, I can use that to make Fluix quartz. I also got started with some Ender.io machinery, which was not necessary because I was going in the AE missions, but I thought I might as well do it. This also allows me to make all sorts of specialized alloys, including one which is extremely important called Lumium. Normally you'd have to like melt down glowstone and either put that in a bucket and then make powder, but in this pack you can actually throw silver, tin, and glowstone dust into the Ender.io, into the alloy furnace, and just make the alloy like that. It's awesome because it makes it so much easier. If you know what Lumium is used for, at least now since I haven't made any other upgrades, I'm guessing you know what I'm going for. I want to make the phytogenic insulator, whatever the thing is called, the machine that grows plants. That's my entire goal right now. Why do I want to grow plants? Well, besides food, I want to make a specialization that can grow the slime trees. This is a big, complicated process, but thankfully I have all the resources I need to make it at this point. I also had to make a market so that I could get this back alley dealer to use the shulker pearls to get my sapling. I needed red dye, but that was actually possible because apparently you can grow grass if you have the seeds for it, and bone meal it to get flowers. As you can see though, everything here should be correct. Now, I did not test it with the sapling augment. I didn't really test it with anything else. All I know is that it should be able to grow this since it is slime. This augment does say slime, but for some reason it's not letting me. I had a bad feeling about this because I'm guessing they disabled this machine for the pack, which makes sense, I guess, but also completely sucks. Because now I have to grow and harvest the tree myself, which is just going to take a lot of time. Thankfully, the excavator that I made earlier makes this super easy. The whole reason I'm harvesting this specific type of slime is to actually make sponges. Now you're probably wondering, why am I making sponges when I'm in the middle of a desert? Well, I need to throw these into a sieve to hopefully get prismarine. Now, it wasn't long before I realized there's a far easier way to get prismarine, but I will get some other stuff from this as a bonus, even if it's not super useful. I quickly realized it would just be way easier to make the atomic reconstructor. This is pretty awesome. It requires a bunch of power, but it can change the form of quite a few items. Notably, it can turn quartz into prismarine. So yeah, I wish I would have thought of this first instead of the whole slime and sponge thing, but oh well. If you're wondering what I need prismarine for, I would like to make one of the last few additional modifier toolkits. And yeah, this is the prismarine one I haven't gotten yet because, well, you need a ton of prismarine to make this thing. It's actually pretty stupid. I think it's like 4 prismarine for 1 material, which means you like half a stack for a single plate of this, which is crazy. Next up, I finally gotten enough fluxed electrum to make a cleaver. The cleaver is one of my favorite weapons, besides the crossbow of course. The cleaver has a very slow attack speed, but it does an insane amount of damage. And, as a bonus, it has a high chance of getting heads from enemies, which is pretty important because that's actually what I need right now. To make one of my least favorite machines, like ever, I need a creeper head and an enderman head. That's not going to be fun at all because endermen are extremely rare, but this sword will help with getting one. If you couldn't tell, getting an enderman head took me forever. On top of the fact that they're extremely rare, well, the head is not guaranteed. I actually added another beheading modifier to the cleaver that gives me a 30% chance to get a head in total, but yeah, I think I had to kill like 4 endermen or something like that. It might be hard for some of you to see what all the mobs are here, but endermen are quite rare. The funny thing is that I went through all of this effort to make the slice and splice, but I didn't even use it. I mean, this thing is certainly useful for later on, but you'll see soon enough. I guess I just wanted to make it either way. Now that I've been getting into more AE stuff, I finally made a crystal growth accelerator. I have to say, this thing is super cool because it makes the crystals grow, well, super fast. This is so much better than waiting. I mean, I don't even know how long one of these seeds takes without an accelerator. It certainly has to be like an hour plus. It's ridiculous. But yeah, this entire time I've just been working on the rest of the stuff that I actually need to complete the ME system. Some of you might have noticed that we're getting scarily close to the end of the video. The main reason is, well, this is not going to be a multi-part series. This is pretty close to the actual end. Not the end of the pack, but my run. Why is this? Well, I was just slowing down a ton at this point. I'll be honest, I'm not having fun with this pack. And that's rare for me to say. Like, I have fun with all of my playthroughs, but Forever Stranded, yeah, this is not that good of a pack, I hate to admit. Earlier on, we saw my main issue with the pack, you know, the horrible balance and the heat mechanic. That sucked a lot of the fun out of the early game. I mean, you could tell. I had to sit in a pool of water half the time. The other major issue I've noticed with this pack is there's actually too many mods in it. Now, yes, a lot of different mods do different things, but my primary issue is mods that pretty much do the same thing. My best example. Early on, when I was working on some AE stuff, I actually made quartz enriched iron. Guess what? That's not AE, that's actually refined storage. Yeah, another pack that has both refined storage and applied energistics. It makes zero sense to me. Choose one or the other because they pretty much do the same thing. I know most people prefer AE, so I guess go with that instead. But yeah, you seriously don't need both mods. I don't understand the point of that. Another great example is nuclear craft and extreme reactors. Now, yes, I love both the mods. They're super fun and very useful. And sure, they're different, especially as you get into more complicated stuff with nuclear craft, but I seriously think you should just have nuclear craft instead of extreme reactors, not both. It would make so much more sense. And the final major problem with this pack is also kind of a problem with me. I've been playing GregTech New Horizons for a while now, and let me admit, that mod pack spoiled me. Like, it's such a well-made and incredible pack that it's tough to play other packs at this point. The main reason that makes GregTech New Horizons so good is the amount of guidance it gives you. Sure, it's one of the longest and most complicated mod packs out there, but it tells you how to do everything, and there's an insane amount of information in the pack itself. Another great example is Ocean Block 2, because that mod pack has a ton of guidance in all the missions as well. I love that pack a lot. But yeah, that's why I didn't like this pack as much. Sure, it does have a whole mission tree and stuff like that, it just doesn't give you very much guidance. That's the problem. Besides guidance, like I've already said several times, it's horribly unbalanced, especially when it comes to things like, well, the nuclear craft infinite water sources. I don't know, but I believe those should be disabled, because just being able to make an infinite water source super early on is a little bit broken. You should really have to find some way to automate water through the crucible or something like that. Now, I know that's what's intended, but if I can cheese a game, I will. I mean, there's not too much else to really talk about, considering this is when I pretty much stopped playing. There's not much more progression from here on. Besides that, I've also seen all the endgame stuff, and it's your usual draconic evolution, whatever the mod with the infinity, catalyst and neutronium ingots, all that garbage is. Yeah, I'll be honest, this pack is not that great. It focuses way more on like late game stuff than the original Crash Landing does. Crash Landing is all about surviving early on. And that's what makes it so much fun, because your progression is super slow. And here, your progression is super fast up to the mid game, where it kind of just gets super slow and stale at this point. I am glad that I played this pack at least to test it out, but yeah, very disappointed once I finished it. Which really sucks, because I'm like, dang, I wish I would just put this time into a Greg Tech episode instead. I would have had infinitely more fun in there. But oh well, you live and you learn. Not every single mod pack can be a real winner. I've started to notice that a lot of mod packs are like this that share a lot of the mods. Thermal Dynamics, Ender IO, AE, all of those that are pretty much the same and nothing truly special when you get down to it. It makes a lot of sense for like the absolute classic packs and stuff like that. But I seriously think people should start playing stuff that's truly unique. You know, like Ocean Block 2. That's one of my favorite packs of all time because of how special all the progression is. The one thing I really wish is that I got a tiny bit further, because the only mod in here that really interested me was like advanced rocketry or something like that. I would love to try out that mod and see how it works in space and everything like that, but I guess that'll be for another time. And more likely another pack. But if you guys really want to see me play and maybe complete this pack, let me know. But I'll be perfectly honest, I have zero interest in playing it out. I'd rather go back and finish up Greg Tech or try another pack that you guys recommend. Anyways, despite the disappointing ending, I hope you all enjoyed watching. I enjoyed at least a tiny bit of this pack. As usual, I always appreciate all of you guys watching, so thank you very much. And a special thank you to my channel members. This is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.